Good morning. Welcome to Caffeinate Your Career. Today's topic 11 steps to preparing for an interview. I'm your host, the career coach with the most, Jason Hopper. With me today is the Jammin' Jim Warner. He's my guest host for the month. Jim,
Thank you.
welcome to Caffeinate Your Career.
Appreciate it.
All right, I'm checking to see if we are live. And Jim, job search is hard. I say all the time, like people don't understand how hard a job search actually is.
Yes.
And I always remind people and clients, like, if job search was easy, everybody that wanted a job would have one.
Right.
But it's a difficult process, and we talk a lot about just the interview process in itself and how kind of awkward it just is.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times, and where I see job seekers falter, is they don't prepare enough, which is the reason why we are doing this topic today in how to prepare for the interview in 11 steps, right?
Right.
So step one, read the job description and then read it again.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Most people skim it and think that they understand what the job's about. But those first maybe 3 or 4 lines in the job post are the most important. And those are the ones that you really need to read to become prepared for the job when you're ready to interview, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. Job descriptions are written the way we used to write letters to Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like when you were a kid,
yes.
and you would write a letter to Santa, or these days the kids email Santa.
Mm-hmm.
All the things that you have listed at the top are the things that you really, really want.
Absolutely.
And then like the last bit is like, and some roller skates, because you don't really care about those. You want all the big ticket items up front,
yes.
right? I don't think you have to match the job description 100%. I think like if you're maybe, I'm going to say like a 60% match, it's probably, go ahead and apply.
I would agree. I would completely agree. The job posting is a map to what they're looking for. And it just gives you some basic understanding as to what they need, and if you have the attributes that they're looking for, it's time to press on.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand what what they need.
Yeah.
And that brings us to point number 2
mm-hmm.
in preparing for the interview, which is, why do you want the job? Because it has to be more than, well, I just need a job.
Absolutely. You need to consider a position that makes you happy. You're spending 8 hours of your life every day at this job. And if you're not going to be happy, this isn't the job for you.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of want to enjoy what you do.
Yeah.
I think. Like, I just went through this with a client, and she was like trying to figure out, she liked the job, but like, is there something more?
Yes.
I think oftentimes like people get into that, the grass is greener on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get into that bit, I think it's always a good idea to like do the list
mm-hmm.
of pros, cons, weigh it out, and then just like, do you like it? And I like working here
mm-hmm.
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I like talking to clients. It's just fun. But like, I think when you get to that point, and sometimes you just do, where you outgrow the job or there's no growth, and it's like, what else is going to be next? What's going to be the next thing?
Exactly. I agree completely.
Step number 3, research the company.
Right. And you've got to take a deeper dive when you're researching the company. Just looking at the company's website isn't enough. You really need to explore, try to figure out who works there, whether there's press releases, whether there's other news articles, where they're screaming about something new that they have created. Those are the kinds of things that you really need to grab and understand and research. Because when you get in front of the client, just saying, hey, I had an opportunity to look at your website, is not going to get you where you want to go.
Well, yeah, that's a great point. You have to let the interviewer know that you've done your research. I think it's important to research the interviewer as well.
Without a doubt.
Like look them up on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you have in common with them? Or is there anything that you could use as a talking point in the interview?
Well, as an example, talking point would be just notice that you just joined the company a year ago, the interviewer, and one of the good questions that you could ask that interviewer is, help me understand what excited you about this company. You've been here a year, as I saw on LinkedIn. What do you think so far? You know, if interviewers are able to talk 80% of the time and the candidate 20% of the time, you know, that interviewer thinks that interview went fantastic. However, if you flip that and, you know, the interviewer is talking 20% of the time and you are talking 80% of the time, that interviewer says, oh, God, is this over yet?
Right. That's a good point. That's a good point, and also like one of who's kind of come up here in a minute. Like, and I forgot whose quote that is. Might have been Oprah, but it was just like people never remember what you said so much as how you made them feel.
Exactly.
And you're right. If whoever's doing most of the time, man, I had a really good conversation today with Jim. I'm like, did you though? Because you didn't do a lot of talking.
Yes, exactly.
But it went the other way. And that's, I think, it's important to remember when you're talking to the interviewer to make sure that you are working on establishing that rapport.
Mm-hmm.
And that you are asking them questions, like you just said, you've been here a year, or you've been here, or maybe they have tenure. You've been here 8 years. That's kind of a long time in a career. What do you like best about working here? Like try to understand why it is that you might want to work there.
Yeah.
I think that's a point where people forget. Like I think oftentimes, and I know you've seen this, Jim, where job seekers and the candidate, they come in almost as a begging,
mm-hmm.
like please hire me,
yeah.
And that's not how the interview should go.
No, exactly, because it brings us back up to the point that says, you know, you are looking for this opportunity where it's not for you, it's what can you do for the company. It's not I need a job, but it's what is the job, why does the job need me?
Right, because employers hire people to solve problems.
Yes.
You need to understand the job description and the problem you're there to solve. Mm-hmm. That's actually, I think people don't understand the point of the interview. They think the interview is they're going to go and they're going to show up and they get the job. That's not the point. The point of the interview is to show up, sit, listen, and determine if you can solve their problem.
Exactly. I agree.
All right. Number 4, and we just talked about this. Practicing answering typical interview questions.
Yes, exactly. Understanding your strengths, it's obvious. Understanding your weaknesses. Also thinking past those basic concepts and thinking more along the lines of other related questions that are more cultural, if you will.
Yeah, I think that is practicing an interview and answering your questions is paramount to showing it. I think like if you just think you're going to show up and just wing it, mm-hmm. Oh, I'm good on my feet, I can think, that's not going to work.
No.
I like to think like the interview and you preparing for it, it's like a test that you already have the answers
mm-hmm.
to.
Right.
You don't know everything they're going to ask, right? But you do know some questions could potentially show up, like what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Yeah. Or even, so Jim, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Right.
Like you need to know how to answer that question. Did you know there's a formula for that?
Yeah. Well, it's the elevator pitch.
Yes.
And the elevator pitch is, you've got 25 floors in which you're going to be maybe in the elevator with the hiring authority. And by the 25th floor, you need to have your elevator pitch complete. So how do you summarize your background in a way that's not going to bore the interviewer? You're not going to talk about school. You're not going to talk about the fact that you like playing ball as a young person. You're not going to talk about your last trip out of the country. This is the opportunity you have to really capsulize what you're about.
Yeah, yeah. It's your past, what you learned,
mm-hmm.
and why you're excited about this particular position.
Without a doubt.
Jim, you said just a second ago, like the elevator pitch.
Yeah.
And I was trying hard not to laugh. And the reason is because not that, but you came and did a presentation for our networking group.
Yes.
And you went through, so tell me about yourself
mm-hmm.
with some of the participants, and they're talking and talking and talking. And Jim goes, 25th floor, stop! And all of them, every single one was like, oh my God. Like,
that's right.
And they weren't done. And see, that's the other point. That's why we do this. It was we practice, because without practicing, you tend to just kind of go off script and ramble. I think it's a good idea. And this is point number 5. Practice your speaking voice and your body language.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to bring us back just for a second
For
to
sure.
point 4 and to suggest to you all, and you probably already know this, but on Google, if you Google what are typical interview questions, there's a ton of them out there. And having some experience in some of these, if you're new to this, would be very, very helpful.
I think also, too, if you really want to get into it, it's a great idea to use AI. Right? I have a client. What she does is very specific. And she's a change manager. And so we were talking about possible interview questions. I just went to Chat GPT
mm-hmm.
and had it and query list interview questions for a change manager position. 12 of them popped
mm-hmm.
up immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go. Gave it to her. Practice these. And that's for just that. It could be, admin, accountant, acrobat.
I find ChatGPT to be a really fantastic program to use. I actually invest $20 a month for ChatGPT because I think it's really important, and it does eliminate my need to Google things. And they have a free version of ChatGPT
mm-hmm.
too.
Yeah,
that's a little slower, but provides you with similar information to the subscription model.
I just read an article a couple days ago on LinkedIn
mm-hmm.
that said that 65% of employers are now looking for candidates that have some familiarity with AI.
Well, yeah.
It's not going away. It's a tool that is going to continue to grow, and I think it is super important for people to know how to use it
mm-hmm.
somehow,
mm-hmm.
some way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with it. Like, I will ask it stuff, and sometimes I don't ask it what I need correctly, and I have to go back and do it again.
Yeah.
But that's part of learning it, and I'm getting better at it. And also too, there's you could take. There are classes you could take on how to use and query specific results in AI.
Well, just as a side note, I brought my computer to my grandkids in Las Vegas recently, and I exposed them to ChatGPT, and for the next 4 hours, they played with ChatGPT.
Just messing around with it, ask any questions.
But start the kids at 4, 6, and 8. What will they be like when they're 20s, 30s with AI?
Our kid is 12, and he is. We call him the IT support of the household. He can just figure out how to do things.
Mm-hmm.
He's just technically inclined,
yeah.
But also too, he's grown up with, he had his little reader.
Yeah.
Oh, I
get it. I get it.
All right. Point five.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good idea to, so point five is practice your speaking voice and your body language. Um, Jim,
Yep.
thoughts?
Well, just as I mentioned earlier, you're going to be talking ideally 20% of the time. So that 20% needs to be very efficient. So you need to practice. You need to practice providing short answers to typical interview questions. Just as we had, Jason had mentioned that we did a seminar here at Jewish Family Service. I did give the audience the elevator pitch and a requirement that they have to stop by the time they get to the 25th floor. Uh, the same thing goes with practicing your interview. You need to keep it to 90 seconds. Any further than 90 seconds, you may be in trouble. The concept is you need to keep this person engaged in what you're there for and want to listen to you and think you're exciting.
Yeah, studies have shown that after 90 seconds, if something doesn't change, because adults, we learn different.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are like sponges. They will just sit there and listen to you and absorb. But adults, after 90 seconds, if something doesn't change, you lost me.
And remember your body language. That's also very, very important when you're in an interview situation. You're not hanging it low in the seat. You don't have your legs crossed. You're sitting straight with the hiring manager. You're keeping a good image. You look kind of like somebody that they'd want to hire. What do you think?
What about mirroring, Jim? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's completely acceptable to mirror. As a matter of fact, I think it's a great idea.
I do too. I guess if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say mirroring, so let's say the interviewer, they lean in a little bit. You should lean in a little bit.
Right.
If they, put one hand on the desk, put one hand on the desk.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of is that you make that connection. Don't do it so much that it's completely obvious. But I think it's a good idea in a way to connect with the interviewer. Also, too, like little things that you don't think about, like sitting up straight.
Yes.
Right? You said don't slouch. It's like sit up straight while you're talking to somebody. The head tilt is kind of the universal sign that I'm listening to you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you talk a lot with your hands, which I do, try to remember. And I took home ec in school, right? And you learn table manners.
Yes.
Table manners. One hand in your lap, one hand on the table at all times. So when I'm doing presentations or even doing this,
yes,
I always try to remember in my head, I'm at table manners. So then you can go back to reset before I start talking again and make the next point.
Yeah. Good point.
Try not to be closed off. Like you don't want to be sitting.
Oh no, exactly.
It's interesting because I'll do presentations here for our networking friends, or we'll have a guest speaker, and I'll watch the people. What are the people doing? Are they taking notes? Are they just sitting there or are they sitting like this? Because even though this is kind of a natural pose, it's also too like I'm kind of closed off. And this is really closed off.
Oh yeah,
this is like ready to fight, right?
And you're not seeing this, but Jason has his legs crossed, and that's something else that you need to be thinking about is your whole body, relaxed, not tense, just working, mirroring, developing rapport with this hiring authority.
If you're interviewing, if you're going to interview on video, and I think it's a good idea to obviously be prepared, but also too, like you can have your notes with you.
Yes.
Jim, how do you feel about candidates taking notes during the interview?
Well, I think it's fine. I think they so long as they're focused on the interviewer may even appreciate the fact that the candidate is taking notes.
it's never bothered me,
Mm-hmm.
but I too, like, so when I was a recruiter, I liked it when people took
Mm-hmm.
notes, but you can't be like just
Oh no, without a doubt. You're looking
the
at
whole time.
no.
You have to like
Yeah.
scribble something that, a 1, 2 word thing. I do think too that if you are going to, I think if you're going to take notes, I think that you
Mm-hmm.
should get yourself a portfolio
Mm-hmm.
with a notepad, pen, um, and don't do it on your phone. Because I take notes on my phone all the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
But if the interviewer is not aware
Yeah.
that you are taking notes on your phone, then they may think that you're texting or doing something else. I've had some clients. They come in. They have I don't know what it's like, a notepad where they have their little stylus, and I could see them writing notes as they're talking to me electronically. I get it. We live in an electronic world, but you have to let the interviewer know what it is that's actually happening at the time.
Right now, while we're talking about doing live video interviews, think about your surroundings.
Oh yeah.
Not only the lighting, but what's behind you. And I had an example of a candidate that was doing a video interview during COVID, and the interview ended in about 5 minutes. Candidate wanted to know was that a good interview? And I said, of course, it was not a good interview. 5 minutes, something must have happened. So I talked to the hiring authority, and what was behind that candidate on the shelf right above was a water pipe and
A lot of you mean like a bomb?
like a bomb.
Okay.
For marijuana.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So he ended the interview because he could not have somebody that did drugs. And so think about your surroundings. I mean, I'm sure you don't have drugs behind you, but nevertheless, you got to think about what is in the view of the camera.
I think it's a good idea to make sure on video interviews that if there are other people in your house, that they know that you're having an interview.
Oh yes.
Like, you don't want somebody walking across the camera not camera ready,
Mm-hmm.
right? That happened to a client of mine, and she told everybody in her family that she was, going to be on a video interview,
Mm-hmm.
and then her son, even though he knew, still walked across camera in just his underwear, right?
Right. And then there's the dog barking. Think about where the dog is, and close the door if it's possible. I mean, all those are very basic, I know, but those are things that you need to think about in detail before you get on that very important video conference.
Carly said tips for virtual interviews. We are doing that right now, Carly. So be lit from the front.
Yes.
Be lit from the front, not the back. If you're lit from the back, you're going to be a lot shadowy. Like, I don't know, you're in witness protection and you're giving testimony to the FBI or something.
Yeah.
Right? Also, too, you talk about background. Make sure that you're not in front, like your background isn't, you're not in front of the window. Again, it's a lighting problem, but also, too, there's all kinds of stuff happening back behind you. It is okay to have headphones on.
Yes, if that's the best, if that is the best audio system you have available, yes, it is okay.
I think too, obviously, preferably you would want a camera or the camera on your laptop.
Mm-hmm.
If you do not have that option and you have to use your phone,
mm-hmm.
make sure that you anchor the phone. You don't want it, like, I don't know, falling over in the middle of the interview. So make sure that it is in place. Also, too, like distance.
Mm-hmm.
People often don't think about distance. Like, you should be, guys, like about arm's length away from where you are in the camera, whether you're using your cell phone or your laptop. Be arm's length away. Anything farther than that, and you could seem disinterested.
Mm-hmm.
Anything closer than that, you're like right up in the person's face.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that, for sure. Shall we move on?
Let's go to question or point six, number six, not question. It's number 6. Prepare thoughtful questions to the interviewer. Jim.
Some of the questions I think that should be asked when it's time for you to ask the employer, are questions related to help me understand, is this a new role, or is this a role that you're creating for the first time? Yeah. That's one very, very important question. Or what happened to the person in this role? Were they promoted or did they leave the company? That might give you another understanding of some stability in that company.
Yeah.
I don't think that's really off-putting, asking those questions. Asking questions such as culture. What does the company do in terms of celebrating achievements? Do they have an annual meeting where there's awards and other things that are provided to the top producers? I think these are questions that you don't want to ask more than, say, 3 questions to the employer. They don't want to be interrogated. It's your interview, but you do need to have 3 or 4 well thought out questions to ask that hiring authority when it comes to, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, you can't say, oh no, you covered it.
Right. Exactly.
No, they didn't. They want you to ask questions. You have to ask questions. And even if the interview itself, which hopefully it will be a conversation,
yes,
right? Because it should really be like tennis, right? We were just talking about tennis a minute ago, but back and forth and back and forth. And so you should be able to have asked questions, but when they ask you, do you have questions? Make sure you have at least one in your back pocket that you can whip out. I've been really big on close questions. You said a minute ago, like what was the last achievement the team celebrated? First off, they should have something that they're celebrating.
Yeah.
And if what they tell you is like, oh, you know what? Marge cleaned up our shared drive, and there's a lot less crud in there now, and we had cake. Like, okay, you're celebrating really small things. That's a good. Sounds like you're fostering a team effort. I like if you are in a hybrid role or even you work in the office, ask so the team I'm joining, what do we usually do for lunch? Which is kind of a weird question, but when you think about it, how they answer is really telling. Because if they say, oh, you know what, we're kind of busy and we just all kind of eat at our desks and work through lunch.
But one comment you just made, Jason, is what do we do for lunch is excellent. It's like you're already there. Like you've already earned the job. What do we do for lunch? Is a good statement.
It's all oftentimes how you phrase things, because you're right. If you can get the hiring manager to see you in the role, you're winning right now.
I agree.
Right?
Yes.
We have a comment. Michael Rosenberg said, taking notes. I was told by the recruiter I could take notes and will therefore be silent briefly and not to take that as a cue that I need to speak more. If more details are needed, they will ask. Mirroring, sorry, laughing at the I Love Lucy with the Marx. Thinking of I Love Lucy episode with the Marx Brothers. I don't remember that episode.
I don't either, but help me understand that question.
Well, I think what he's saying is that while you're taking notes, you don't have to continue to keep talking.
Oh, I agree. Oh, yeah. And actually, you're not taking notes while you're talking. Generally, you're taking notes while they're talking.
Yeah.
You already know what you're about, so you're taking notes when they're saying something of importance.
Yeah. So make sure that you do have questions to ask.
Without a doubt,
it is important.
Yep.
Number 7, conduct mock interviews. Jim, did you know that we have a mock interview program here?
Actually, I'm on the panel.
You are on the panel, Jim.
I did.
Jim is part of our mock interview team. We do mock interviews, guys, the 2nd and 4th week of each month. They are virtual. You can participate anywhere in the world. We're actually doing it today. Today's full up. But the next time that we will be doing practice interviews will be on the 23rd. If you are interested in it, email me. My email is Hopper, HOPPER @jfsdallas.org. put mock interview in the subject line. It is 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock Central. We have two different sessions. So let me know, because the 23rd is getting filled up real quick. I just told Jim I'm half full already on it. So
I want to say also that no ChatGPT or Google searching will give you the kind of experience that you will learn on our mock interviews. These are really vital, especially if you're new to interviewing and haven't done it in a while, and you really want to prepare yourself for that next great opportunity. Highly suggest that you tune in or call or email Jason to set yourself up.
it's so, if y'all are wondering, this is how it works. You get, I will put you into a breakout room with your interviewer. They will interview you for 30 minutes. They have 15 minutes of feedback, and then they have a feedback form that they send to me that I will then forward to you. You have something tangible now in your hand of something that you may want to work on and improve on your interview skills. Since we started this last year, we have had several people go through the program and have gotten hired.
Now, short of that, you can interview yourself interviewing.
Yes.
And that could be helpful as well, because you may have some things that you could easily adjust if you knew that you were doing something wrong. So I highly recommend you consider, even if it's just a voice recorder, it would be helpful to hear, or even banter with your partner, your significant other, somebody else who you could do some practice role-playing sessions with. You need to be practiced before you get in front of the big guy.
You could also set up a Zoom just for yourself, hit record, and then just practice you, if you're by yourself, if you don't have somebody to help you out, just practice you saying or answering typical interview questions. You could record it, go back and watch and see how you're performing. Oh, I'm not sitting up straight. Oh, I am touching my face a lot. That's just a weird thing on video. It's also kind of weird in person.
Yes.
Unless you're doing it for a fact, like, oh, I know. But it's just weird when you're touching your face, right? It's just, so don't do that. But like, you could go back and then watch it and then see, like, there might be some things that you don't know that you're doing during the interview that's causing the interviewer to be like,
well, what's also going to help you understand is the lighting in the right place. What's behind you.
Right.
Is a blurred background better than the background of the paintings you have on the wall? Your call, but you can adjust all those things in recording yourself on a Zoom.
For sure. And then, of course, mind your body language and your tone. Number 8, Jim, is print hard copies of your resume. This is kind of important just because I don't know how you always did it, but I remember recruiting corporate and even being an on-site manager. Sometimes I would give the resume, a hard copy of the resume, to the manager that had my notes scribbled on it. Some managers did not want it. But some managers, too, would ask candidates, do you have a copy of your resume? Ideally, everybody should have a copy of your resume beforehand, but sometimes not.
Or maybe they looked at it electronically, and I've actually had some questions about, they have it electronically. Why do they need a hard copy? Well, you need multiple hard copies when you go in an interview situation, especially face-to-face, because if you're talking to Susie as your first interview, and Susie loves you, and she wants you to meet Mary, and Mary doesn't know your resume, she could actually get it electronically as well, but have multiple copies of your resume with you when you're preparing for an interview.
Yeah, that actually happened to me. I interviewed with a recruiter. The recruiter's like, oh my gosh, I think you'd be a great fit. Can you talk to our lead? Yes, okay. And the lead was like, do you have a copy of your resume? Yes, I do. Here's my resume. And it's because they didn't have this plan. Lead's like, oh my gosh, I think you'd be great. Can you talk to the hiring manager? Yes. So we go down to the different office.
Yeah.
Here's my resume. Get down. They keep moving me down the line, right? And then I'm now talking to like the top guy. He's like, "Do you have a copy of your resume?" And I'm like, "Steve's got it." Like I ran out. So make, I would say, 10 to 12 copies of your resume just in case. Just in case. All right, number 9.
Yep.
Plan out your travel.
Yep. Yep.
Go ahead.
Well, I suggest that you arrive to the building that you're interviewing at 30 minutes in advance. With traffic and with other things that may come up, um, something that would delay you, I would suggest that you be planning to be at the building 30 minutes in advance. I don't recommend that you actually go to the office where you're going to be interviewing before 10 minutes. Any earlier, you're like, they think you're overly in need. Any later, they're worried if you're going to come at all. So 10 minutes is a very good time, but making sure that you're in the building 30 minutes before.
I had an interview once at a staffing company, and it was in a large office building. I did not know where they were going to be in the building, so I was 30 minutes early, right? And the interview was at like 8:30. It was early interview.
Mm-hmm.
So I walk in the office building, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're right here on the first floor. So I walk, quickly walk by, and I'm sitting in the lobby, and I'm sitting there, and I'm practicing my answers to their questions, and now people are arriving, and people are coming in, and I'm sitting there, and I see the people, and they're nodding.
Uh-huh.
All right. And so now it's time for me. It's 10 minutes time before 8:30, so it's 8:20, and I get up, and go into the office building. Everybody that just passed me was in the staffing. They're like, weren't you the guy in the lobby a minute ago? I'm like, yes, that was me.
Yeah.
Also, too, if something is happening, if there's a wreck on the tollway and traffic is not moving, you've got a phone, you better be calling the interviewer, the front desk, somebody, email them, let them know what is happening. And that you are running late, because if it gets to a point where you are too late, you may have to just reschedule the interview. I mean, when I was a recruiter, I would oftentimes schedule back to back to back to back interviews. And if you're late, I'm sorry, it's 9 o'clock. I got to see Sam now.
Right. Yep. I agree.
Let them know.
Yep.
Number 10, sell yourself.
Well, at the end of this interview, all the way through the interview, you're talking about those things that you've achieved, those things that you did that were above and beyond. At the end of the interview, it's more than time to brag about yourself. It's time to close. Okay. And what I hear from many candidates is the way they close is, "Gosh, it's been great talking to you today. I really enjoy what I've been hearing. This sounds like a great opportunity, and I look forward to hearing it from you soon." I think that's a bad close.
That's a terrible close. That's not even a close.
There's nothing
That's
about
not even
that.
close.
Yeah. But 90% of the people that you're competing against for that job use that close, which is not a close.
No. People, when I was in staffing, the people I did not hire were the people that did not say, I am interested in this position. And it's, again, all in phrasing. When would you like for me to follow up with you? Not when can I hear from you? That kind of thing. They don't know.
But you're going to typically get an objection at that point. And the objection may be something along the lines of, we've got a couple more people we need to speak to before we can give you that answer. That could be a smokescreen, or that could be a real objection. How do you think you would handle that?
There's not anything that you can say at that point except for, okay, great, I understand, and when should I follow up with you on the position?
And I think that there is something you can answer.
Okay, yeah, tell me.
I think you would say, if it wasn't for those other people, would you have any hesitancy in moving me forward? I think that's really helpful, because at that point you could say, oh no, I love your background, I just got to get through my list. Or they may say, gosh, I really wish you had a little bit more chat GPT experience.
But that's part of the close. That's the hard close. The hard close, which is Is there any additional information that I can provide to you today that makes your decision in hiring me easier?
Agreed, Jason. Agreed.
And if they say yes, do you know ChatGPT? Okay, yeah. But you have to get them to the no.
Yeah.
And once they say no, great. And you say, did you have no objection to moving me forward?
If you didn't have any hesitation after that point moving me forward,
that's right.
Can we schedule? Help me understand the process from here.
Yeah, like figure that part out.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't close, you don't get the job.
Exactly.
Period.
Yeah.
Guys, work on your closing. And then finally, the last bit, follow up. When's a good time to follow up?
The same day. I think that the candidate really needs to follow up same day. Now, I think you need to give yourself a couple of hours, maybe even all day, to think about how you're going to phrase, how you're going to be personalized, how you're going to follow up, but not immediately. And you're not going to be using a template that you send to everybody after the interview.
That's a good point. I think that it's important to remember that if there are multiple people in the interview, everybody gets a personalized thank you email before close of business that day. It doesn't have to be, right away, a couple of hours, but before the end of business that day, send an email.
And, I think even when you get to that final, what is really helpful is to send a handwritten thank you note through snail mail.
Mm-hmm.
The reason? Most people, if they look in the mailbox, they have 9 pieces of junk and maybe 1 decent piece of mail. They're going to be very excited about getting a thank you note, a written thank you note. And that may set you apart from the person who was on the fence with you, but you took the time to send a thank you note.
That used to be like kind of a standard practice up until the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then, we hit quarantine and nobody was in the office. So you couldn't send thank you notes. Now that we're out of the pandemic and people are in the office a lot more, it's a practice that never got picked back up.
Mm-hmm.
And so you doing that as a candidate sets you apart.
I agree.
And that's important. That's what makes the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, we are pretty much at time. So fun question of the day. It's summer. Any vacation plans coming up?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we're going to France in August.
Oh, wow.
We cannot wait. We're doing a riverboat from Lyon, France, to the couple rivers around there, and we cannot wait for that. That's going to be awesome. In a few weeks, in 4 weeks.
Okay.
Yes.
That would
What
be.
about you?
I'm out on vacation next week.
And where are you going?
We're going to San Francisco.
Oh, beautiful. I'm from San Francisco.
Are you really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Let's talk after this because I got a couple of ideas we're going to do. I think Stephanie has planned out a lot more than I have.
Okay.
I just show up and see what happens.
Well, you'll love it. I have some great suggestions for you.
Perfect. Let's talk. So no live stream next week, but the week after that, Jim will be back and we will be talking about why it's a good idea to work with a recruiter.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see you then.
Thank you.
See you in a week. Bye, guys.